Is, of course, the main story in town, Trent Alexander-Arnold, where we begin this show. Listen, a lot's been said. We were speaking before we went live about it, and sort of you've been off, whilst it's been kicking off, and you've had a chance to sort of sit back and take it all in and sort of gather your thoughts on it, I guess, really. So let's start with your take of it all, because we've discussed Trent and the possibility of him coming or going for a long time now. Yeah. How did it make you feel? What is your sort of reaction to it now? The timing of it, the handling of it, etc., etc.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I heard Chris Pajak say on the podcast you did the other day that in a way nothing's changed, but in another way everything has changed. And I think that's a nice little way of sort of summing it up. If you read the sort of language that's in David Ornstein's piece, which was, I think he was like the first sort of big UK-based journalist to go with the story. I don't think it's moved the situation on too much in terms of we know Real Madrid are interested. They've got a long-standing interest. We know Trent Alexander-Arnold's contract is coming to an end. We know that they tried to get him in January. We know that they're trying to get him on a free transfer in the summer. So in a way, it was as you were. But in another way, the fact that it has come out, in the March international break where a lot of clubs start getting a few ducks in a row with regards to summer recruitment, certainly that's the way Liverpool used to look at things under Jurgen Klopp. Don't think it'll be too dissimilar now with Arne Slot and Richard Hughes. So that is interesting that it has come out. I always remember a story 2 years ago about Jude Bellingham, pretty much saying that Liverpool have accepted that he's going to be going to Real Madrid. But again, it was in a way that wasn't anything that we didn't necessarily already know, but the fact that it came out around that time. So I think the timing of it is interesting. And I think even though we haven't really heard either way about, specifically Trent's plan around all this, I think people are starting to accept the fact now that his final weeks at Liverpool are here and now, and he will be moving on a free transfer. So, conflicted really in terms of how I feel about the way it's been handled, his decision, how it's been handled from the club. So it's all a lot happening, isn't it? And like I say, having been off this week, I haven't had the immediacy of having to sort of formalise my thoughts straight away. You're writing a comment piece or, opinion, whatever it may be. So I've just been sort of taking it all in. But, however way you look at it, it's going to be sad to see a born and bred Scouser leave the club, so especially someone who's so good.
Yeah, no, absolutely is. Yeah, that's my sort of top and bottom line on it, really. If you like generational football, football's come through the ranks and won everything there is to win at Liverpool, and I can't sort of shy away from that. Obviously, the boiled red factor, as you mentioned, and the fact that you want those sort of players to sort of cement their legacy and their club legend status. And to some people who will have done that, to some people who most definitely won't, which we'll come on to next. And I'm not going to ask you for your opinion necessarily. Feel free to give it, by the way. We don't need to know your colours to the mast in terms of your view on Trent Alexander-Arnold, the football of the Liverpool being that is now. But what have you made of the fallout, again, from being able to sort of sit back and take it all in? You've seen dozens and dozens of pundits and journalists have their say. You've seen social media have its say. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, I don't want to give too much credence to a lot of the stuff that's on social media. A lot of it is fair and reasoned and balanced and critical, but a lot of it is just, over the top for the sake of, the rat emojis and all that. I think that's probably getting a bit too out of hand. There are legitimate reasons to be critical of the decision, to question why, he feels he can't achieve his dreams at Liverpool. But on the flip side, this is a player who, at the age of 26, has won everything there is to win at Liverpool, and he's going to be hopefully touching the wood here, a two-time Premier League win at Liverpool. Something Steven Gerrard couldn't do once, something Jamie Carragher couldn't do once, and he's going to achieve it twice, all being well, and an FA Cup, a couple of League Cups, and a Club World Cup and a Champions League to boot. So he might feel there's nothing left to conquer at Liverpool. It's just, like I say, it's just disappointing that for years he's sort of talked up the fact that he wants to be Liverpool captain, and that has been his overriding objective, and he's probably within 3-4 years of it coming to fruition. But he feels that the lure of Madrid is too much. So, from a Scouse point of view, I'm Liverpool born and bred, the same way Trent Alexander-Arnold is. I love to see Scousers thriving, flourishing, whatever sort of industry they're in. Football is no different. So to see a sort of boyhood Liverpoolian go to Real Madrid and become a big star of that team that could win X amount of Champions Leagues in the next 5 years, I've got a lot of sort of pride in that. But also on the flip side, which probably is still the majority of my thinking, that it's just so disappointing to see a boyhood Red leave his club, and I think that's probably where to land on it, really. And I don't think the club could have done a whole lot to have stopped them, really.
No, it doesn't look like that, does it? I think a lot of people initially jumped to the fact that the club could have done more, and maybe finances were involved or part of the thinking, but I don't think that's the case. I think that's been sort of borne out over the last few days, really. But you're right, it's going to be interesting. I made this point on our sort of immediate reaction show earlier on this week. Like, a lot of what happens next might sort of define where his legacy sits, and in terms of how he's thought of, and maybe even his move after Real Madrid, because obviously we've seen that with a certain Michael Owen, what that did to his particular reputation. But yeah, in terms of the pantheon of Liverpool greats, we'll have to wait and see where he sits in that, of course. But yeah, it's a shame. That's my overriding feeling of it all. It's just a shame that it's ended the way it has, really.
I think what has happened is, having spoken to people at Real Madrid, for instance, they were giving it he's a Liverpool player and we don't comment on other teams' players, and that is fair enough. And it's still sort of the same party line that it has been with the players' camp and the club's camp. So in a way, like I say, not a lot has changed, but it's the Madrid PR machine that's sort of gearing up into full cycle now, isn't it? And the fact that they've done it with Kylian Mbappe, they will feel emboldened to do it with anyone, really. And they've done it with David Alaba, they've done it with Antonio Rudiger. Real Madrid tend to get the players they want, don't they? And that is the way it's always been, really. You look, the last 25 years, the players who they brought in from big clubs, they got Luis Figo from Barcelona, and Zinedine Zidane when he was at the peak of his powers at Juventus, and
they don't miss very often.
Cristiano Ronaldo, Kaká, they get who they want, and why wouldn't Liverpool supporters feel as though it would have been any different, really?
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. I guess the one example that Liverpool fans have turned to this week is Stevie, isn't it? Yeah, that's the one everyone's gone, because you are right, like, but ultimately that is it. And I guess this won't have even crossed Trent's mind. There's another point I made earlier on this week, like, failure, that doesn't exist in professional football, because if it did, they wouldn't get to where they got to. Certainly not somebody of Trent's level and high profile standing in the game. But I do wonder, and fear somewhat for him, that if it doesn't go to plan, like, how bad, because I mean, you look at Gareth Bale had a brilliant time at Real Madrid, and yet still, you know what I mean? Like, they just never really took to him, did they? I mean, again, it might never be the case for Trent, but there has got to be an element of that, really.
No, 100%, yeah. And I remember we had Jamie Carragher on our Blood Red podcast before the season started, and I made the point of saying, to play devil's advocate, if he goes to Real Madrid, he'll be out of sight, out of mind, and what we will see on social media will be the great passes, the assists, the through balls, the outside of the foot, all his passing range in full glory on social media in a La Liga game, and I don't think generally people keep up with it as much. So we'll see all that and we'll go, what a player, so gutted to lose him. And what we wouldn't get is the sort of 10-minute dissection of his defensive frailties from Gary Neville every single week, or Monday Night Football, whoever it may be, Roy Keane saying he should be playing for Tranmere. So we won't get any of that. But Carragher sort of said it's going to be the total opposite in terms of, if you think Liverpool's under a microscope, wait till you get to Real Madrid. And he said he spoke to Thierry Henry about his time in Barcelona, and the attention was just like he'd never experienced before at Arsenal, and even as a top player for France. He said for those two classical giants, it is just a totally different world. So that will mean that when a winger gets by him a few times, which will inevitably happen, he'll come under more scrutiny than he was at Liverpool, and he won't automatically have the groundswell of support that he had at Anfield. So I think that will be an issue for him at some stage, but he will be going to an unbelievable team who was set up now to really dominate, actually, for the next few years. You look at the age of their players, their best players, Vinicius, obviously Bellingham, Benzema, forgot his name, Mbappe. Yeah. Even players like Camavinga and Tchouaméni, they're all young, aren't they? So he's entering a team who are primed now to really push on and dominate European football in pretty much the same way they have done in the last 15 years. Yeah,
absolutely. He'll be laser focused on the positives and the success side of it, obviously. When he crossed his mind, what if elements of it, but you are, I mean, Jamie and yourself are right, like, the unforgiving over there, the fans and obviously the media as well. Be interesting. Just quickly before you sort of wrap up on the Trent stuff and look to move on. Yesterday, it was confirmed that the Premier League are going to have 2 summer transfer windows, which in of itself is a thing. A 9-day long one.
I've totally missed this.
I'm breaking news, Paul Gorst. So the Premier League have confirmed there's going to be 2 transfer windows, right? One starting on the 1st of June, running to the 10th of June.
Okay.
And then it'll close again and then reopen again in a few weeks' time. Now, that brief one is to allow Club World Cup teams to do business, right. Okay? Yeah. But obviously they can't just open it up to Chelsea and Man City as it would be in the Premier League's case. They've got to open it up to the entire league. And, La Liga, Bundesliga, etc., could well follow suit on this because this is a FIFA-led thing and FIFA are allowing for it, obviously. So, therefore, there is scope for Real Madrid to buy Trent before his contract expires to get him in the squad for the Club World Cup. Like, I know I'm dropping this on you in the most extreme of circumstances, but listen, what the fee would be, I wouldn't even know where to start, to be honest with you. Yeah. We know they offered around 20 million in January, was it?
Well, they never actually got as far as a formal offer. Liverpool just basically adamant he's not for sale, we're going for the Premier League
That was
title.
The muted figure, though, I think I might say.
Yeah, so that sort of come out a few days later in Spanish press that they were willing to offer around about 20 million euros. So, yeah, it never actually got that far, but yeah, it's fair to say that would have been the offer.
Yeah, so therefore, it'd be less than that, obviously, because we're talking he's got weeks left on his deal by this point, but like, it's another possibility in what's been a bit of a saga, if truth be told, whereby he could actually leave before the end of his contract and Liverpool could receive a nominal fee for him. Yeah. What would be your thoughts on all of that? So
I guess that would be, I think Liverpool would probably accept that, to be fair, just to get something down on the books. So it's the difference of leaving in the 1st of June as opposed to the 30th of June, isn't it? Liverpool haven't got any games then anyway, so it's immaterial, really. I guess it's a case of how much do Real Madrid want him for that Club World Cup.
I did see it muted before we went live. Sorry, I ran upstairs to grab a drink, quick peek behind the curtain there. And there was like a sports witness piece that came out from Spain on the back of that news discussing that possibility. I haven't had a chance to read it in full yet, obviously, but it did say like there is an interest from Real Madrid to try and make that happen. Yeah,
I imagine they would look to sort of expedite it by a few weeks to get him in for that competition. I guess I think they'll be really keen to win that tournament, won't they? The sort of revamped, new look Club World Cup, which is given a little bit more credence across world football, it's fair to say. I mean, I've always quite liked the Club World Cup, really. I think you've got to win the Champions League just to get in it, and then obviously you're playing against teams who perhaps aren't as strong as the European giants, but this has got a few more in, so Madrid's European history, they will be determined to be the sort of inaugural winners of that, won't they? So, I imagine they'd be quite keen to get him in. Yeah. It's just a case of how keen. 10 million euros, 5 million euros. It's a little bit of a guessing game at this stage.
Yeah, no, massively so. Yeah, I just thought it was another little
Yeah, I think Liverpool would do
element. Yeah, I don't see why not. Ultimately, it would be 5 to 10 million, whatever. Like, why not?
Unless they cut the nose off to spite the face and two fingers up to them.
Yeah. There'd be definite potential.
Liverpool don't strike me as an organisation who will do that, though.
No.
Very sort of clinical and business-like, particularly Michael Edwards. So I couldn't see them telling Madrid to go and do one, and you got to wait another 4 weeks before you get him.